My name's Nathan Hale. I'm a student from New York. Ordinary, restless, maybe a bit too confident for my own good. Last summer, after months of noise, city dust, and deadlines, I decided to disappear for a while. I packed a few clothes into my worn-out backpack, rented an old wooden cabin through a local website, and drove south, all the way toward the Appalachian Mountains, where the horizon folds itself into waves of dark green ridges, and the forests are so dense that once you step inside, the sky disappears behind the tangled canopy. The road curled like a living serpent, mist clinging to every bend, and the wind carried the smell of wet soil, moss, and pine sap. I rolled down the window, letting the cold air rush in. It wasn't the kind of cold I knew in New York. Not dry, urban, or clean, but damp and heavy. The kind that seeps into your collar, clings to your skin, and makes your breath visible even under the afternoon sun. I don't know why, but the moment I drove past a weathered wooden sign that read, "Welcome to Appalachian Ridge," a strange feeling washed over me, a mix of awe and unease. The air grew thicker, quieter. Every time the tires crunched over gravel, I felt as though something deep within the trees was watching, from behind the trunks, from the places where the light could not reach. I told myself I was just tired, imagining things. But the deeper I went, the faster my heart began to beat. Even the birds had stopped singing. Only the whisper of the wind through the leaves remained, low and restless. Everything around me seemed to move at its own rhythm, slow, deliberate, and utterly foreign. I couldn't explain why I felt that way. Nothing had actually happened. Yet the air carried a weight to it, as if the whole forest was holding its breath, keeping a secret. And though reason told me it was only exhaustion, somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered, "Something's wrong here, Nathan. Turn back." But I didn't. I kept driving toward that lonely cabin halfway up the mountain, the place where I would soon learn why people say you should never stay in the Appalachians after dark. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was watching. I brushed it off, blaming fatigue from the drive. But as I unpacked, I noticed how every window in the cabin faced the woods, tall, shadowed, stretching into darkness. The trees stood too close, like a crowd of witnesses. Even during the day, light struggled to reach the porch. I told myself it was fine. I was here for solitude, after all. That night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to a sound. 3 slow, distinct knocks. Knock, knock, knock. They came from the front door. At first, I thought I was dreaming, half awake, half hallucinating. But then, I heard breathing, shallow, almost gasping breaths, right on the other side of the door. I froze, staring at the dark ceiling, every nerve in my body tightening. Someone was standing outside, listening, waiting. I didn't move, didn't dare speak. After what felt like an eternity, the breathing faded away, and the night returned to silence. I didn't sleep again. When morning came, sunlight spilled through the blinds. The air smelled of pine and damp earth. Trying to convince myself I'd imagined it, I opened the door. And there they were, footprints, bare feet. Small, narrow, pressed deep into the mud, leading away from my porch and into the forest. No animal made those. No hiker either. A chill crawled through me. I closed the door and decided to do some research. Maybe the cabin had a weird story. Maybe it was known for animals. Maybe anything rational. I typed the location into my laptop. Pine Hollow Cabin, Appalachia Folklore T. What came up wasn't comforting. There were old local threads, forum posts, and even a few grainy photos. People had written warnings about a well buried somewhere near the ridge. They said it belonged to a woman who'd lived there in the 1800s, a widow who lost her child and threw herself into the water. Locals called her the Hollow Woman. They said at night, if you heard her knocking, never open the door. Because she doesn't ask to come in. She asks you to feed the well. Don't feed the well. That was written over and over again. I laughed nervously, closed my laptop, and told myself it was just folklore. Just stories. I couldn't explain why I felt that way. Nothing had actually happened. Yet the air carried a weight to it, as if the whole forest was holding its breath, keeping a secret. And though reason told me it was only exhaustion, somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered, "Something's wrong here, Nathan. Turn back." But didn't. I kept driving toward that lonely cabin halfway up the mountain, the place where I would soon learn why people say you should never stay in the Appalachians after dark. The next night I found it, the well. Hidden behind the cabin, swallowed by weeds and creeping ivy, it was little more than a ring of moss-covered stones and a wooden lid that had long rotted away. The air above it was colder, unnaturally so. I leaned over the edge, shining my flashlight down. The beam vanished into the blackness, as if the darkness itself swallowed light whole. That was when I remembered the post I'd read online earlier that day. An old forum buried deep in some Appalachian folklore site. It said, "If you ever find the old well near Ridge Hollow, don't feed it. Don't even look down too long. It remembers." I laughed it off. A stupid legend. Local superstition to keep kids from falling in. Still, the words lingered. That night, around 2 a.m., the knocking started again. 3 short knocks. Then, silence. Then, another. Softer, like fingertips against wood. And then, a voice. It was my mother's voice. Clear, gentle, calling my name. "Nathan, honey, open the door." My breath caught in my throat. She was hundreds of miles away in New York. I knew that. But the voice, the tone, the pauses, it was identical. Perfectly so. For 3 nights, it kept happening. Different voices each time. My sister, my best friend, even my old professor. Each calling for me, whispering for me to open the door, to come outside. And then, I made a mistake. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was madness. But I thought, what if the legend's wrong? What if the voices just want something simple? So I took a small piece of bread, the leftover from dinner, and tossed it into the well. It made no sound when it fell. No splash, no echo. Just silence, as though the air itself swallowed it. That night, the knocking stopped. For the first time in days, I slept. but peace doesn't last long in the Appalachians. Because the next night, the voices didn't call from the door anymore. They came from inside the house. And somewhere between dreams and waking, I heard it. A whisper from the corner of the room, soft as breath against my ear. "Thank you for feeding me, Nathan." The next day, the air turned colder, heavier, as if the forest was holding its breath. I tried hiking a little, but every rustle behind me made my skin crawl. It felt like being followed, not by something animal, but aware. When I returned at dusk, I locked every window, bolted the door, and sat by the fire reading. At 1:57 a.m., the knocks came again. 3 times, slow, followed by a whisper. "Nathan." My stomach dropped. That was my mother's voice. I hadn't told anyone I was here. I hadn't even checked in since leaving New York. And yet, that voice, soft, trembling, familiar, it spoke again. "Nathan, honey, open the door. Please, I'm cold." I wanted to believe it was sleep deprivation, but tears stung my eyes before I realized it. The sound was exactly like her. The rhythm of her breath, the way she said my name. Every cell in my body screamed that it wasn't real. But another part, the child part, wanted to open the door. I didn't. Not that night. And when the voice faded, I heard the same slow breathing again, followed by soft laughter. For 3 nights, it continued. Different voices. My father, my best friend from college, even my ex, whose tone I knew too well. Each one called me by name, begging, pleading, whispering through the cracks. "Nathan, open up. It's me, let me in. You left me down there." Every time the same knocks. Every time around 2 in the morning. Every time I sat frozen, heart hammering, too afraid to even blink. I started sleeping during the day, barricading myself in at night. I stopped checking my phone. Stopped eating. The forest outside no longer felt like Earth. It felt like it was watching me, waiting for me to fail. I still remember the night I forgot to close the window. It sounds so small now, one mistake. But that was the night everything changed. The rain had been falling since dusk, slow and steady, soaking through the old wooden cabin. The smell of wet wood and mold clung to everything. I woke around midnight to silence, the kind of silence that feels heavy, like the whole house was listening. Then I felt it, that strange pressure in the air, like something else was awake with me. I rolled over, eyes half open. The curtain near the bed moved. Just the wind, I thought, until I saw it. A pale hand pressed against the glass from outside. Long fingers, thin as bones, dripping with water. It slid slowly downward, leaving streaks of mud. And then another hand appeared beside it. And then a face. A woman's face, but not human. Her eyes were white and unblinking. Her skin rippled as if floating underwater. When she smiled, black water spilled between her teeth. She whispered something. Not words, just a wet, choking hiss. And then I heard another voice, layered over hers. My mother's voice. Nathan, I told you not to look. The window burst inward. I screamed, falling back, glass slicing my arms. The air smelled of rot and river water. When I looked up, she was inside the room. She stood at the foot of my bed, dripping, her hair clinging to her face, her head tilted sideways with a sharp crack. I stumbled back, shaking, whispering, "This isn't real. This isn't real." The light flickered once, then went out. The room fell into darkness. And that's when I felt it, a presence behind me. I turned slowly toward the closet. The door was half open. Inside, two eyes gleamed faintly in the dark. Not glowing, just wet. Watching. I couldn't move. My whole body locked up. Breath caught halfway in my throat. My shaking hand reached for the handle. The door creaked open. Nothing. Just damp clothes and the smell of rain. I exhaled, a broken, nervous laugh slipping out of me. Jesus, I'm losing it. Something moved behind me. I turned. A shadow crossed the floor, fast, silent. But when I spun around again, there was nothing. The air felt colder, heavier. I crawled back into bed, clutching the blanket like a shield. My pulse was a drumbeat in my ears. I told myself it was a dream, a trick of the dark. Then I felt it, a hand brushing against my ankle. Cold, wet, human.kin. I gasped, kicking free, heart slamming against my ribs. The hand retreated, or maybe it never existed. I leaned over the side of the bed, trembling. There was nothing underneath. Just the dark and the faint sound of dripping water. I pulled my knees to my chest, whispering to myself, "Just sleep. Just sleep." The silence returned. Then, a drop of water hit my cheek, cold as ice. I opened my eyes. She was there. Hanging upside down from the ceiling. Her hair dangled inches from my face, dripping onto me. Her skin was swollen and gray, her lips split and bleeding dark water. When her head tilted, I saw gashes along her neck, like she'd been pulled out of something deep. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. I just stared as she grinned and fell. She landed with a wet thud and crawled toward me, her joints twisting, bones snapping backward. Water pooled beneath her palms. She whispered in dozens of voices, men, women, children, all speaking at once. "You looked out. You fed the well. Now you belong." I bolted. The hallway lights flickered as I ran. Every door I passed slammed shut. Behind me, wet footsteps. Fast, dut. I reached the front door, yanked it open, and stumbled into the rain. Outside, the forest was alive, whispering my name. Nathan. Nathan. Dozens of voices, maybe hundreds. I ran. Mud splashed my legs, branches clawed my arms. When I reached the car, I could barely breathe. My hands shook so badly the keys slipped twice. I started the engine, headlights slicing through the dark. That's when I saw her, standing by the tree line, still dripping, still smiling, her head tilted, listening. I hit the gas. The tires spun in the mud, then caught. As the car shot forward, I saw her reflection in the rearview mirror, running after me. Her limbs twisted, her body jerking with every step, keeping up. Sometimes she wasn't behind me. She was beside the car. I didn't dare look again. I just drove. Faster. The road blurred. Thunder roared. The forest screamed my name. When the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, I finally saw the mountains fade behind me. Only then did I stop. I sat there, hands frozen on the wheel, drenched in sweat. The world was silent again, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still near, just out of sight. And when I glanced at the rearview mirror, a single drop of water slid down the glass. Then a faint reflection, a smile, before it disappeared. It's been days since then. I drove straight back to New York. I haven't slept. Every night at 2 a.m., I hear 3 knocks at my apartment door. Always 3. Always soft. And sometimes, when I check my phone, there's a message request from an unknown account. Just one line, "You left me in the dark." So if you ever find yourself in the Appalachian Mountains and someone tells you, "Don't look out the window at night," believe them. Because some things out there don't want to be forgotten. They just want to be found. And if you hear knocking at 2 a.m., don't open the door. Because once you do, you'll never stop hearing them again.